Welcome back everyone. It's been a minute since I've talked about any PlayStation console on this channel. However, on my second channel, I drop like PlayStation, Xbox, Sony, even Switch videos all the time. So make sure you guys check out my second channel. I usually do like troubleshooting things, I don't really know, but today we are talking about the 2016 PlayStation 4 console, and it's funny because the PlayStation 5 is coming out, and so I have to drop a bunch of these videos now before the PlayStation 5 so I can do a bunch of those comparisons. The PS4 Slim, like I said, came out in 2016, and it was kind of more of like a redesign of the original PlayStation 4, which I also own, and I think, the whole entire PlayStation lineup is amazing. I love all their consoles. I've owned, I think, all of them so far, including the PS3s, PS2s. I don't think the PS2 Slim I bought yet, but regardless, we're going to go ahead and check this thing out. I'm going to tell you, this thing is still completely worth it. However, when the PlayStation 5 comes out, we're probably better off, I'll probably be honest, you probably should pick up the PlayStation 5 over the PlayStation 4. The PS5 is set to support backwards compatibility, which is going to be huge. The graphics on that console are looking to be about the same, but hopefully better. But with the PlayStation 4 Slim, this thing cost me I think it was about like $250 to pick up in the used market, which is pretty dumb. I did have to get a working one. There were a lot of ones that were like messed up or whatever. This one was working and it was $250, which is weird because these things cost less than $300, I think, brand new. But because of this pandemic, all these gaming consoles have been going up and up in price, which is very weird, including the Nintendo Switches, the Xbox One and One X and all those ones. A lot more people are staying inside and these consoles are becoming commodity. So they're sold out pretty much everywhere. I tried to buy a PS4 Pro. That thing was also sold out. So with that being said, to get your hands on even a PlayStation 4 Slim that came out a couple years ago is getting harder and harder. But I feel like once, things start opening up and all that stuff, these things will be available at a larger scale. So it's kind of weird that a console that's, a couple years old is still being sold out, which is very weird. Now, this thing came out on September 15th. In 2016, and retail price, like I said, was $300, and the biggest selling factor of it was the fact that it was smaller. It was, still a competitively priced thing, but it was the cheaper model of the PlayStation 4 Pro, which was also being sold at the exact same time. Now, I'll be honest, I own the PS4, I play it sometimes, and owning the PS4 Slim, I honestly don't have a preference. I don't care which one is which, and I always find it interesting that consoles, tend to get smaller and smaller when we kind of just set them aside and just not worry about them. Like, it's not like we're carrying them around with us every day. Case in point with the PlayStation 5, that thing is a humongous console, and Sony knows that most people will probably not care about, it being so big or whatever, but they will probably inevitably make a PlayStation 5 Slim at some point. And with the PS4, it's kind of in that same boat. The PlayStation 4 was pretty big, the PS4 Pro is bigger, but with the PlayStation 4 Slim, it's actually not that bad of a console. It's not really big, it's pretty small. That's one of its biggest selling points. And when feeling it in the hand, which is something that nobody's ever going to do when I'm holding it in my hands right now, I can definitely feel how slim it is, how small it is. It's completely made out of plastic, which does not feel like the most premium thing. It's kind of in the same league as like the Xbox One X. I'm so surprised that One S felt so good, but the One X felt so weird, which I never understood that. Now, looking on the front, you do have the CD slot, which is great. You have two USB ports, which is awesome. I love having the USB ports on the front. The PlayStation 4 also had two USB ports on the front as well, but this one, I like this console a lot more just because of that two USB ports. Just, they kept it. I'm super happy about that. The One X only had one, I'm just saying. And you also had the power button, which was a physical button, which it was a physical button on the PlayStation 4 as well, but not quite. It's like kind of in that middle league. And you had the eject button. Now, with these two buttons being more of a physical button than a digital one, it allowed for things like, you being able to sense, if you're actually clicking it down or not. On the PlayStation 4, the original one, I think it's like in the mix of like being a digital and a physical button. It's so weird. And sometimes I would try to boot into safe mode and I just wasn't able to do it because I just couldn't hear the beeps going off and I couldn't see certain things. But with this console, getting into safe mode is much easier in my opinion, which is great. Now, you don't have anything on the sides except for the fans. And on the back, you have the Ethernet port, which is great, but this thing supports Wi-Fi, so that's even better. You have the HDMI out, and you also have an auxiliary cord port, whatever that means. I really don't even know what that is. Now, this thing does not support 4K, which is okay, but it does support, still supports 1080p. It's still a pretty good looking console in my opinion as well. A lot of consoles don't age that well. I feel like with the PlayStation 3 Super Slim that I already reviewed, that thing has not aged that well at all. I don't think it looks that good or anything. However, with the PlayStation 3 Slim, even the original PlayStation 3, those things have aged extremely well, including the PlayStation 4. But with this PS4 Slim, even though it doesn't feel like the most premium thing in the world, even though it doesn't, even though it's not made out of metal or whatever, it's still an extremely good looking console in my opinion. And for, whatever reason, the slimness factor is actually a really cool looking thing. Even though you're just setting it aside, I still think it's a pretty big asset in my opinion. Now that's pretty much how the console holds up in terms of the exterior, and when you boot it up, you're still supported, you're still, getting software updates kind of for the most part. And I really do like the PlayStation's home screen. I've liked it ever since like the PSP came out. That looks so nice, and it's still pretty much there. You still have access to pretty much everything as before. Now, what's really good is that, first of all, ever since I've been making those videos on my second channel about troubleshooting certain things with the PlayStation 4s and all that, I've been seeing that there's a lot of problems for all gaming consoles. It's not just specific to one gaming console, it's to multiple. So if I say something wrong about this, or something, there's a problem with this, chances are there's probably problems with a lot of other consoles as well. But sometimes I've heard of, certain things like, when you boot it up, you get stuck in a safe mode loop over and over again. The PS4 Slim, I really haven't heard too many issues with this specifically. I've heard a lot more issues with the original PlayStation 4, so keep that in mind. So this console, booting it up, I don't have any problems with this specific console. It still boots up into that original screen, which is great. You have access to so many different panels. You can go play online. You can download all your games digitally, which is great. And there was a theory, which is so funny. Somebody said that Sony is purposely making your discs unrecognizable sometimes or something like that, some disc issues to make you switch over to more digital copies. And I always wondered why Sony would want that, but I'm not saying it's true or not, but there is some merit, and I would recommend you guys to kind of look into it, which is very interesting. But the gaming selection of this thing is still great. No backwards compatibility with PlayStation 3, but totally okay. The games run perfectly fine. I have not had any issues with any PlayStation 4 games at all. I've downloaded games, I've, bought games, put them in. I've had no issues whatsoever. The only times I might have had issues is maybe it takes a second or two for it to boot up, or sometimes it might just require me to update my software, which is kind of annoying. Sometimes I want to go straight into playing a game, and I don't want to necessarily go and update my PS4 every single time I want to go through it, but that's more of a PlayStation 4 issue, not a PS4 Slim issue. But performance is still great. Everything was still good. I've had no issues whatsoever. Now when the PlayStation 5 comes out, this is where things are going to be a little bit different, because developers are going to start developing games for the PlayStation 5 and not necessarily for the PS4 or PS4 Slim or whatever. So there's going to be a time, probably within the next year or two, where developers are probably going to stop focusing on PlayStation 4 and go switch over to the PS5 and Xbox Series X. So that's a pretty big thing to keep in mind. This thing is still completely relevant right now, but I'm not really too sure how much longer it's going to be relevant. Now, I talked a lot about the console itself. I think we all know how it runs and performs and things. I forgot to hit on the controller itself, and the controller is one of those things that's the thing you're interacting with the most. And with this specific controller, I like it a lot. I think maybe the Xbox controller I like a little bit more, but this controller is still good for everything I threw at it. Really, when I'm holding it in the hands and I'm messing around with it, it's still extremely good. I've had no complaints with it whatsoever. You have the touchpad up top, which is kind of cool, and it's just so symmetrical. It feels really, really good in the hands, and like I stated, I really haven't had too many issues with it. It still completely holds up. Yeah, there may be some times where, it doesn't feel that great, or the joystick drift issues happen, and that's a pretty prevalent issue as well. That's happened with all PS4 controllers, but it's also happened with the Xbox controllers as well as the Switch controllers. It just happens with all types of controllers out there. So it's not just a one specific issue for the PS4. It happens across the board, but the battery life from these controllers are pretty good as well. My specific one, I have to keep it charged in because it's just being weird, but across the board, as a unanimous decision, the PS4 controllers are very, very good controller as well. So to kind of sum up the video and to answer the question, as I've already done, is the PlayStation 4 still worth it in 2020? As I've stated, completely worth it. It's a great device. Really, anything I threw at it, it handled it perfectly fine. I'm not like a professional gamer or anything like that. I just kind of mess around with these things and kind of go from there. And with the PS4 Slim, I think if it was between this or my original PlayStation 4, I might have to pick up my PS4 Slim. I feel like this has a lot more capabilities and it's smaller. And if I had to go and travel somewhere, and if I had to go do anything, which nobody's traveling right now anyway, but if I had to, I feel like the PlayStation 4 Slim would probably be my go-to device. It's quieter. it kind of looks better, even though it doesn't feel necessarily better. It's smaller, and if you can get your hands on either a PS4 or PS4 Slim at this point, then, I'd probably give you props for it, but the PS4 Slim, in my opinion, is still completely worth it in 2020. So that's really pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys would check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.